Sustaining Creativity podcast. I'm your host, Mari Riesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Bobby Klinck, lawyer, online entrepreneur, and tech founder. Please enjoy Bobby Klinck. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity podcast. Today, I'm chatting with Bobby Klinck, lawyer, online entrepreneur, and tech founder. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I think we're going to have a fun conversation, which you can't always say when there's a lawyer involved, but I think we'll make it fun.
I think we absolutely will. And I'm super excited to chat about creativity. But before we get there, why don't you take a couple of minutes and let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm a lawyer by training, graduated back in 2002 from Harvard Law School, started my legal life very traditional way that kind of the prestigious way. I worked for a court of appeals judge. Then I came to Washington, D.C., spent about 5 years working for law firms where I was representing Fortune 100 companies and doing that kind of work. Then I was a federal prosecutor for 3 years where I got to actually stand up and argue cases in court and do that. And when I was transitioning out of that, I was deciding what to do. And I had an offer to go back to the firm I was at, but I kind of went a different way. I joined a small entrepreneurial law firm that was two guys basically at the time. And I was thinking, hey, I would really like to be an owner and be a professional, not working for a big company, which is at the firms I was at. Even if I became a partner, I would have been just kind of a worker bee. Yeah. So I joined that small firm. Did that for about 4 years. Then I hung my own shingle in 2014, not because I really wanted to, but because those two guys and I had made the mistake of not actually putting in writing in advance what was going to happen and how I would eventually become a true partner in the firm. And as tends to happen, if you don't work that out at the beginning, it got tough. And so, as my wife was pregnant, we couldn't work out what my stake would be. And so I went out on my own. And in that process, I quite honestly had a lot more time than I did clients. So I started trying to figure out how am I going to get more clients. And I read a lot of books about marketing. First, I started reading books about marketing for lawyers, and those were kind of absolute trash. So I threw those out and started reading just general marketing information and fell into the online marketing world and was doing that as a way to build my own law firm at first. And then in 2017, I decided, with the help of a life coach, really, who asked me if I liked what I did. And I said, well, not really. And she said, okay, what are we going to do about it? So I decided to launch an online business and to find a different way to serve people. And so since 2017, that's been my focus, building an online business that helps coaches, course creators, what I call knowledge brands, people who are selling expertise and information, whether it's a service or a product, and helping them get their legal protection in place. And so first that was legal templates and some training that became free. Now I have a software solution instead because I'm kind of weird like that. I tend to go bigger and bigger. I had no experience with software or web development, but I said, why not build software? And so that's been my life now for the last 2.5, almost 3 years. I've been really pushing on that angle.
I love it. I mean, what a journey to have gone on and end up where you are now. Throughout this journey and in your own life, when you think of creativity, what does it mean to you to be creative?
So to me, being creative is just not to use, I hate using this phrase because it's kind of silly, but it's thinking outside the box. And it can be in a lot of different ways. And quite honestly, the law itself is not something that is subject to a lot of creativity. I mean, there's only so many ways to write a contract. So I don't get to be creative that way. And so for a long time, my creative outlets had nothing to do with my work, quite honestly. I was creative in other ways. I
Mm-hmm.
was this close to starting a beer company back a little before I started my own law firm. And that kind of came out of me starting to brew beer. And it was a way for me to channel something and produce something in the world that was different than what existed before.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a creative outlet I needed. And so I was doing that for a while, just brewing my own beer. I still do, and people still ask me about it and still enjoy my beer. But I did that for a long time. I love cooking, kind of the same thing. I love cooking, and I haven't looked at a recipe and I can't even think of how long. I mean, I maybe look at a recipe to get an idea, but I
Mm-hmm.
just kind of throw stuff in. That's why I'm not a baker, because baker is precise.
Sure.
I am I'm a cook, because I can just say, I think I want to make this. And I just come up with different ideas. And to me, that's all creativity. It's all finding ways to combine things in original ways. That's what I think of when I think of creativity, at least.
Mm-hmm. I love that, combining things in original ways. And it sounds like you are doing that in business as well, not
Yeah.
just in the
Yeah.
kitchen.
Yeah. And I guess that's what I should have said. I mean, now I'm in my business in a sense that the way I've gotten creative in business is that the law itself I'm not creative with, but the way I deliver it, the solutions that I come
Mm-hmm.
to. And even in a sense, I view my role now when I'm helping and when I'm building my software and all that isn't strictly to tell you what the law is, because that's only part of the solution. The other part of
Mm-hmm.
the solution is basically helping people with business guidance and being strategic and saying, okay, look, here's what the law requires if you want to be
Right.
formal about it, but here's the business realities, and kind of
Mm-hmm.
having that hybrid role where I'm really able to bring something more to the table is what keeps me excited about doing what I do. I mean, if I was literally just writing content, creating blog posts or things like that that were, here's what the law is, do this. I mean, I would have stopped a long time ago because it's
Sure.
not all that exciting.
Uh-uh.
And so instead I get to express it in different ways.
Hmm. Yeah, and it sounds like that keeps your creative cup full to be able to maybe have more of that legal framework that
Yeah. I
you
mean,
have to work within.
yeah, I mean, as we're recording this, I have to say, I mean, over the weekend, I spent much of my time. I'm creating a big, huge. I'm calling it an ultimate guide. It'll ultimately just be something that lives on my website. But we're talking 15 to 20,000 word
Mm.
guide about the kind of the legal stuff for course creators. But it's not the legal stuff. It's legal, but it's also here's what you really need to know. Here's what you should be doing, and it's thinking through that creative aspect of the
Mm.
guidance part.
Hmm.
In the past, had to find something else as an outlet for creativity. Now I don't, because I have plenty of creativity in the different things I'm doing in
Hmm.
my business.
I love that. Well, when you come in business or life up against a challenge or a roadblock or something that doesn't quite work how you thought it was going to or wanted to, how do you navigate those moments or situations in your experience?
Yeah, well, it's tough because quite honestly, I am a person who I regularly fail by my own standards. And what I mean by that is I always expect home runs in
Mm.
everything I do, and that's
Hmm.
not realistic.
Yeah.
The good news is I know it's not realistic. So when I face a challenge like that or I face a failure, I don't let it stop me. That's the most important thing. I think a lot of people get tripped up
Yeah.
because when they face a challenge or an obstacle, they just view it as this is a stop sign. And
Mm.
I view it as okay, well, that didn't work. Let me try something else over here.
Sure.
I've always been a throw spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks kind of guy. And
Hmm.
so that's the approach I bring. When I face a challenge, I'm like, okay, well, why? And I am inquisitive. So I do like to try to figure out why something didn't
Hmm.
work, why I'm facing an obstacle. But I also know that sometimes I'm just guessing. And,
Mm.
that can be useful. But at the same time, I don't want to spend too much time thinking about the failure. I'd rather focus more on what can I do? How can I pivot to
Mm.
something that I can make work that isn't as big of a challenge, that doesn't have the same obstacles that I'm facing where I'm kind of
Hmm.
feel blocked?
Mm-hmm. And for you, when you're asking that why, are you someone who like stays in it? Do you step away? Do you go do something else? What is that process for you?
Mix of all of it. I would say
Okay.
I tend to go deep. And
Mm,
so um, I tend to go deep on analysis and then step back.
mm,
And because I think sometimes the analysis helps, but oftentimes you then have to kind of take a break, come back
mhm,
at it with fresh eyes. And also, quite honestly, I have my best thoughts when I'm out doing something else.
mhm.
Uh, my team always joked that I would go for long walks, and it was always bad news because when I went for a walk, I would come back with ideas, and sometimes they were kind of kooky. But if I go for a walk or I go for a run and I mean, I'm listening to a podcast that has nothing to do with business, or I'm listening to
Mhm,
music and then I'll have a thought. And
mm,
that's when a lot of the times the breakthroughs come. I think we've all had that experience, right? It's when
yeah.
you're in the shower, when you're doing something else that all of a sudden you're like, ah. And so I definitely do that. But I also think that needs to be framed by having done some analysis so that
Mm,
you kind of go
mhm,
deeper. And for example, I've also been working on some ads recently, some Facebook ads, and I go very deep on the analytics, look at a lot of different things to get a sense. Okay, where is there maybe a problem here,
mhm,
and where could and then what does that mean, and try to
mm,
pull meaning from it. At the same time, realizing that the data that I'm looking at isn't enough. I mean, I don't have enough because I'm not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I don't have enough information here to make actual judgments. I have
mm,
enough to say, this directionally seems that way.
mhm,
And I'm going to believe that with caution is kind of the way
mm,
I end up approaching
mhm.
things.
Yeah. Well, with your curiosity and inquisitiveness, has this always been the case for you? Where, what's that early exploration of it in childhood, and what's your earliest memory of being creative?
It definitely has. What I would say is, I was not because I'm a bit older. So when I was a kid, people weren't getting diagnosed with things like ADD and ADHD all the time.
Hmm.
I have since been diagnosed, and the very particular time where, or very particular type where you end up hyper focusing on things. And
Hmm.
so when I look back at my history, that's always been the case. I
Mm,
hyper focus on things and I master them, or I get enough mastery, and often then I get bored and I move on. But
hmm.
as a kid, I did lots of different things. I can't really remember the earliest phases, but I played in bands
Mm,
in high school, in college.
hmm.
Those were again a creative outlet, a way to create something that was different. I started cooking when I was quite young. There's a funny kind of I say funny. It's a when I was in middle school somewhere. I don't remember what age, but I would guess I was probably sixth or seventh grade. And we had a set of cousins who there was a cousin who was my age. I have an older brother who's a year older, and then another cousin who's 2 years older, and then a younger cousin. Well, we did I don't even know how we came up with this idea, but we decided we were going to put on a dinner party for our parents. And myself and the cousin who was the same age, we were the ones who did the cooking. So in sixth grade or seventh grade, we decided to do this, and we came up with our own recipe. We decided what we were going to cook. And then my older brother and the older cousin, I think they were the waiter and waitress. And then the younger cousin was the maitre d' who brought them in. But we did all of that. And I was kind of the engine behind it. And
Mm,
like I look back on that, and that's kind of weird to do at that age. And of all the things, we picked flank steak, which is not exactly an easy thing to cook, but that's what we did for some reason. And that's like an early memory. But much of my life was shaped by my dad being a business owner. He owned a chain of drugstores in
mm,
deep South Texas, where I'm originally from.
mhm,
And so I saw him working hard, and that was kind of built into me.
mhm,
And so early on, quite honestly, I don't know that I was all that creative because I thought you just go in, you do the work, you put in the hours, you follow a path,
mm,
and things will work out. And
mhm,
that really was much of my early career was I was just following this path. I was, in a sense, not being creative in work because I was like, that's not how you succeed. So I would say I actually came to it a bit later than most people
mm,
who are had the streak that I do of creativity.
mhm.
Good news is that I had a brother who always helped me be creative and still helps me to this day. So that helps a bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting hearing people talk about when they feel they came into their version of creativity.
Yeah.
Because what I'm hearing in sixth grade or seventh grade, so creative.
Yep.
And that entrepreneurial putting things together, creating an experience, helping someone else have something to take with them, whether it's an experience or a physical object, sounds like more of what you do today as well.
Yeah, yeah, and it definitely is. But I guess I guess it's almost like I lost that, and I think a lot of
Mm,
us do.
yeah,
There's famous quotes, I can't think of any of them now, about how part of the problem is that the spark of childhood is lost. Like when you're a
true.
kid, you're just inquisitive, you're doing all those things. You tend to be creative because why not? I drew when I was a kid. I was never very good at it, but I drew a
Yeah.
lot when I was a kid.
Hmm.
And then at some point, and I don't know when it was, but I think it was late middle schoolish in that
Hmm.
age group and into high school. I lost a lot of that. Now I was, I was not the kid who dressed like everybody else or anything like that. But I was like, okay, here's what I have to do. I need to go into these classes. I need to do well. I need to do
Yeah.
these events. I was in debate. I did all these different things. It was kind of following a path, not
Hmm.
being myself and being creative in a sense. And
Mm.
so I think a lot of people have that happen and then eventually
Yeah.
rediscover their creativity later. And I think that's definitely what happened with me.
Yeah. What was that turning point for you in kind of rediscovering yourself and walking this other path?
Yeah, it's hard to find the particular time because when I decided to really kind of
Hmm.
focus in this online business, that was scary
Hmm.
because it was so different. And I was friends with other lawyers who had continued to work at big law firms. And when I told them what I did, they said, so you're legal Zoom? And I was like, well, kind of, but more than that. But and they thought it was the weirdest thing ever. And I
Mm.
talked to some people, and they're like, literally, some people asked me the question, well, how do you have the qualifications to do that? I'm like, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, well, I went to Harvard Law School. I've studied a lot. I've spent a lot of time doing this stuff,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure that I know this stuff pretty well. But people asked me that, and there was a lot of fear, and really, I think it was
Mm.
overcoming that fear
Hmm.
that was the biggest thing because it was stepping outside of what I knew, which was, follow this path and you'll be successful. And I
Mm.
think it was getting that push and doing it. But
Hmm.
even then, my first efforts weren't successful. It was really in 2018
Yeah.
when things started to work. And I think what helped was positive reinforcement. And
Mm.
by that, I mean, I had success and then I went to an event and people knew me all of a sudden. It was like, I didn't have to go and introduce myself. People knew who I was in this
Hmm.
community and were coming up to me. And I was like, huh, well, maybe this thing that I'm working actually kind of is a good and it's working out here. And so it was those moments that helped.
Mm.
And I think that was when I finally felt that I could just be creative in my
Mm.
everyday life, not having to have it as this outside, find something outside for
Hmm.
creativity.
Yeah. Well, for people who are perhaps struggling in similar ways of finding creativity in their life, how would you encourage them to find it or to reconnect with it?
Well, I would say, first of all, be willing to try different things and
Hmm.
recognize that won't, a lot of things won't work out,
Hmm.
whether because it's not something you're good at, it's not something you like, but find things. And again, everyone's path is different. Some people prefer their work isn't where they're creative, and that's fine. If
Hmm.
that's the route you want to go, great. I mean, just find something and try it out. I have gone through countless hobbies through the years. In the early to mid 2000s, I was very into poker and I played a lot of poker at different times, which that is a creative effort. And again, it was something I got to do to flex my muscles. And it was kind of a combination of combining knowledge with some outside the box and being creative and those things. So it fit me well. But find the things that you enjoy and that light you up and that you'll keep doing. I think the big thing
Mm.
I would say is don't try to force creativity. And what I mean by that is don't go to events because people say, oh, this is what you should be doing. And again, I could pick a million things. I don't want to say anything and make people mad, but like, don't go to ballroom dancing if you don't like dancing. Don't
Right.
don't go to like painting class if you're like, I hate painting. I mean, Find
Mm-hmm.
something that you actually enjoy or think you'll enjoy and try it out. And if you enjoy it,
Mm-hmm.
keep doing it. Kind of
Mm-hmm.
double down, make to to kind of take the poker analogy further, make small bets initially, and then when you find something you like, make bigger bets on those and bigger bets and bigger bets.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time, you'll hopefully find yourself living into a reality that you actually enjoy
Mm.
in those creative efforts.
Thank you for that. It's a beautiful reminder to like find something that you enjoy, but that you can also keep doing. That is going to, that longevity piece is going to help
Yeah,
you.
yeah, I mean, I just think if you're doing something because you think you have to be creative and it's
Hmm.
just something you don't enjoy,
Yeah.
the problem is then all of a sudden you're going to think it's about being creative that's the problem. No, it's probably just that you picked the wrong thing. I
Mhm.
think all of us have some creative streak somewhere,
Yeah.
and we just have to find and unlock what that particular streak is. And it's with anything, creative streaks and otherwise, hobby, sports. If you try to do something you really don't enjoy, it's not going to work out well for you.
Heard. Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm curious, working with the entrepreneurs you work with and other individuals who are creating courses and doing all those pieces, for someone who is just starting out, what would you recommend they do in terms of the legal component for course creation
Yeah.
or business creation?
Well, so it's kind of weird because I'm going to make a weird analogy here
Okay.
because my advice here kind of is going to sound contradictory. And I laugh. I listen to this running podcast and they talk about their mantras. And one guy says, I have two mantras which don't make sense together. One of them is slow and steady wins the race. The other one is the faster you run, the sooner it's over. So it's kind of like doesn't make sense together. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing I'm going to say here. One is take the legal stuff seriously. And by that, I mean, don't just ignore it
Hmm.
because if you make there are certain mistakes that are really easy to avoid at the outset,
Hmm.
but once you make them it's hard to unmake them. It's hard to unring the
Hmm.
bell, as we
Hmm.
say in the legal world. But and here's where it's going to be contradictory, for the love of all that's holy, don't let the legal stuff stop you from taking action. I hear
Mm.
so many people, which is weird. This is not my personality. So it never resonated with me. But after I started doing this, I heard so many people say that they were paralyzed by fear that they were going to do something wrong.
Yeah.
So they never launched, they never got started. And I like to tell people the stuff that we're dealing with legally here, I mean, it's not criminal, unless of course you're doing some really shady things, which you would know that, and it has nothing to do
Right.
with that. So, no one's throwing you in jail. There's no police coming to get you.
Uh-huh.
And most of this stuff, quite honestly, when you're small, no one's paying attention. So it's
Hmm.
not going to be an issue, but you want to put the right practices in place. And what you really want to do is start saying, okay, how do I build this into my routine? Because I want to be clear, the legal stuff is probably never going to be something that business owners really like. It's never going to be part of that creative spark in their business. It's going to be one of
Hmm.
those things like, okay, I got to deal with this. It's like death and taxes. You have to deal with it. So deal with
Right.
it. And create a routine to do it. That's kind of the big thing. Again, I could get into like individual things, but
Hmm.
really it's just a mindset of it of saying, hey, this is something I got to do. Let me deal with it,
Hmm.
but let me not let it scare you. And I make this analogy because I spent so much time working in the environment where I was representing big companies, or even if it wasn't big companies, big enough companies that had in-house legal teams. And what
Hmm.
I'll tell you is those big companies, they don't do all the legal stuff. And what I mean by that is if there's 100 different legal things they could do,
Right.
they're not going to do 100. They're going to triage. They're going to say, well, we've got the time, we've got the budget to do seven of them. And so
Hmm.
those are going to be the seven they're going to concentrate on right now. And that's kind of where you should be thinking about. Legal stuff is one of those things like, hey, how much time do you have? How much bandwidth do you have to deal with it? Let's knock off the most important ones. And then the other ones can wait for next month and then,
Hmm.
or next quarter. And then you can start dealing with those over time as well.
Mm. That is great advice, and thank you for breaking it down. And as contradictory as it sounds, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Those pieces for sure. Well, when you look at the things that you have going on in your life currently, what are you really excited about, and what are you excited to share?
So I'm excited with the potential that we all have right now. I'm scared, but excited as well. And the way things are changing, in today's day and age with technology is just, I mean, it's so strange to think about. And it's in different ways. I was talking with my wife the other day as we were driving, and I said, our daughter will never know a world where, I mean, not only did you not have maps on your phone, but I remember a day where, like, I mean, when we first had maps on our phone or first had GPS, you had to know the address where you were going. Whereas today, I mean, you say, I want to go to Costco, what Costco nearby, and it finds it. I mean, I don't even have to know anything. And
Mhm.
it's interesting, but in a lot of ways, the AI boom is kind of scary for a lot of us who are
Mhm.
creative, who are um, working with our knowledge and working with information, because we don't know what the future is going to be.
Mhm.
I don't know what to tell my daughter, who's 12, is going to be a good career path for her in the future. Luckily,
Right.
right now, she wants to be a vet. I think that'll stick around for a while. And I don't think AI is replacing vets. So
Yeah.
if she sticks with that, she'll be good. But I think it's exciting and scary all at the same time.
Mhm.
And I mentioned, as when we were starting out, that when I started this software, I had no real experience. Now, because I'm one of those people who goes deep, I'm now getting a master's degree in software engineering, so I understand it. But at the same time, the speed with which I can now get code written and deployed for
Mhm.
software is amazing to me.
Mm.
And it's amazing from a year ago how
Mhm.
things are accelerating. And it just gives us this ability, if you're creative and if you're willing to put in some work, that things that used to be barriers aren't barriers anymore. And
Mm.
that's what excites me. The
Mhm.
fact that we can do things. Again, quite honestly, the idea for my software came because of AI, because I always knew templates help people
Mhm.
with one part of the legal stuff. But I said, what they need is something more like this in-house lawyer who can kind of tell them, well, here's the things you need to fix, and can answer questions for them. And AI gave me this spark that could be possible. And
Mm.
so in some ways, my entire business now is based on that excitement of this is something that is
Mhm.
possible only because of the technology we have today.
Yeah.
But that's also scary, right? I mean, who knows
Yeah.
where we're going to be 5 years from now.
Mhm.
But I think all we can do is take advantage of it and enjoy it while we can.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing all of these pieces with me today. I have one last question.
Yep.
What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
I would say I don't know how to explain it, but it lights me up. Is the
Mm.
best way I can explain it. People talk about, and again, because I run a lot, people talk about the runner's high that you get
Mhm.
of endorphins and all that when you finish a run. Often it's not fun in the middle, but you have that good feeling at the end. I would say it's the same thing with creativity. When I
Mm.
create something that's really good, I just have this feeling that I'm kind of buzzing, and it probably drives my wife nuts because I'm high energy to start with. She'll wake up and she's like, how many cups of coffee have you had? And so it's even worse when I've had a breakthrough, but that's, I guess, how I feel. It's kind of
Mm.
that buzzing feeling of just feeling lit up and happy about what's happening in the
Mm.
world.
I'm familiar with that feeling, so I understand. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Bobby, so much for taking the time to chat with me. If people want to learn more about your work, the software you have, all of the pieces out there in the world, how could they go about doing that?
So the easiest way, I mean, if you're someone who my software could help, you can check out plainlylegal.com. And one of the things that we have, that I have, that's a different view from most people, I don't think you should have to pay me to understand what you need to deal or what you need to do legally. So you can actually get a free audit of your business. You can get a free account, go through this, and it creates a task list for you of all the things that you need to do. There's lots of buttons. Once you get to plainlegal.com, you'll find buttons everywhere that sends you there. But that's what I'd say if my business could help you. But also feel free to reach out to me on social. I'm pretty easy to find. I'm Bobby Klinck most everywhere. Sometimes my name will appear as Bobby Klinck, even though like the URL has Robert, which is my formal name, because for some reason I thought I should sign up under my formal name way back in the day, which I would never do now. But you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and feel free to reach out. I connect with people. I enjoy it. I'm always happy to connect with good people.
Wonderful. Well, I will put links in show notes so people have very easy access. And thank you again for taking the time to chat with me. This has been such a treat.
Thank you. It's been fun.
listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.